Hello YouTube, how you doing? Let's see, just that a little bit. Is that autofocus or manual focus? It's on autofocus, thank you. Alright, how you doing YouTube? I'm not doing too bad today. I'm just sitting here drinking some of my green tea. So, how am I feeling? Not too bad. I was a little peeved last week or the week before when I was having computer problems, which seemed to be cascading out of control momentarily, up until the point that I figured out that part of my problem or part of my issues were related to my antivirus, which was cool. That's not a problem. I've fixed that now, and I'm now back on the original antivirus I was on for my system, and got rid of my blue screens, which was my motherboard. Sent my motherboard back onto warranty, got that all fixed up. Got my old motherboard, well not my old, but a reconditioned motherboard back. So that's cool. I've also got a second-hand, not second-hand motherboard, a brand new memory card because my other one died for this camera, which I'm using the old one at the moment, which it works pretty well, but it still pisses me off that I have to use the old one, but oh well, no matter. Aside from that, what else? What else have I got? I got everything else. I've got my new RAM, I've got my new power supply, I've got everything in the computer, it's all functional, it's all working, great, yay, woo! And I'm finally getting back to editing and doing some of my videos, obviously. So that's pretty much the plus side in my eyes. As I said, I was quite pissed off for a while, and I was quite adamant that things were just not going in my direction, and quite annoyed. Exponentially annoyed, I think. Now, I'm not doing too bad now. I'm feeling pretty good. I'm feeling pretty happy. I'm trying to make my way through things as much as possible. Do my best as much as I can at this point. I have to get some water, bottled water this week. There's a couple other things. I've got to pick up some coffee caps, which are my cappuccino sort of coffee caps I normally have. I'm just having some green tea at the moment. I used up the last of my coffee caps this morning when I got up. I need to get a couple of other things as well. Just a couple of I've bought a bunch of supplements the last few weeks, which are great. They seem to be pretty good. Not a problem with those supplements. They're all in my drawers now and ready to be used when I need them. Aside from that, I'm feeling reasonably good. I'm not feeling too bad. My body had to adjust a bit to winter because it doesn't really like winter. Everything acts up, whether it be combination of all the different things and ailments that go with joint pain and things like that. I do get a lot of these things in winter, especially in winter. I don't know what it is about winter, but my body hates winter, hates the cold. Yeah, I've done that. Fixed up winter and everything else fixed up, haven't got, not feeling the cold as much, or I don't appear to be anyway. Feeling a little better. I rested for a couple of days just because I was feeling a bit, a bit on and off, not too bad now. I'm feeling a bit better now, I'm feeling more functional, more fully active, as it were, which is great. In between that, what else have I've basically been trying to, I've done a bunch of upgrades to my computer, obviously, which, I got rid of the original RAM because it was having some issues. It wouldn't clock up properly on my old board and stuff, and then I sent my old board back for warranty, which is now back for warranty, and I'll probably end up using that board to build something, either a gaming machine or possibly build a streaming machine that I might be using for streaming. I don't know at this point. It depends on what parts I can gather and what parts I can buy over time for a nice price. So we'll see how it goes. In between that, what else have I been doing? I've been trying to keep myself busy with repairs a little bit, but it's been a bit sparse with repairs. Like sometimes I'll have a lot, as I said, I've had a few in between. Had some people inquire about, do you have these parts? I said, no, sorry, I don't have these parts. I have to order them in, sort of thing. Unfortunately, that's just a side effect of, people can ask you whether you've got particular parts or not, and I don't always have the parts in question, which is rather sad, but oh well. In the point of reference to that, you're probably better off trying eBay or something like that. With certain types of parts, I think the guy that sent me a message, I haven't deleted it, but I might give him a call back and just say he's probably better off looking on eBay for that type of stuff, especially if it's a Sony Vaio. I don't have the parts at the moment. I might give him a call anyway today. he did call me a day or so ago. I haven't had a chance to be mucking around with doing some of my YouTube projects anyway. So I've been keeping myself busy with that. In between doing my YouTube projects, I've also been doing some stuff on. I've been doing a little stuff on eBay as well, on and off. But it's sort of a mixed combo of things that I've been doing, and I've been trying to keep myself busy. But at the same time, I did a couple of things around the house today. Cleaned up my room, cleaned up my work area a little bit, and of course cleaned up the kitchen and everything else. Did some general dishwashing and just a bunch of dishes and everything else. As I said, the last few days I haven't been feeling too crash hot, so I haven't really been doing much around the house. I've just been laying down, sort of relaxing, or trying to. I would say laying down and just feeling less sick, to be honest, because I do have those moments where I feel sick. As I said, I don't know, just not sick, but like drains me a bit when the weather changes, sort of thing. So as I said, with my psychological, I'll say it again. My psychological conditions in tow with my physical conditions, sometimes it can add up to a certain extent. So that's not too bad. Done that, pretty much, that's all good. Fixed up, yay. Feeling better, feeling a bit stronger, and I'm feeling a bit more alive, which is fucking spectacular. I did feel a little bit crappy a couple of days ago, but that was a few days ago anyway. I'm feeling better now though. I'm feeling a little bit more substantially happier, and trying to do my best really. Trying to do my best most of the time. At this point in time, I'm just relaxing, chilling, and I hope everybody else is happy, and I hope everybody else is having a good week. My week has not started out too bad. I'm pretty happy with the week that I'm having so far. It's not shitty by any means. It seems to be on a positive route. So far, a positive route anyway. From what I can see, I've got a few things I've got to fix up this week. There's a few things I have to work on. I've got to edit some videos, which this is going to be part of those videos. I've got to muck around with a few other things. As I said, I don't think I've been depressed. I think I've just been. It's the weather. Sometimes the weather and just the general environment gets to me sometimes, and things of that nature. And I've just on top of that, it's been fucking cold. And when I'm cold, I get a little bit miserable, sort of thing. Sometimes. At this point, I'm feeling pretty good. I'm happy. It's a bit more sunny today than it was. The last few days, it's been quite rainy, and it's been pissing down rain pretty much the last few days. Very dreary set of weather. It doesn't really inspire you, or doesn't make you feel inspired. Also, it doesn't make you feel very energetic either, to like you want to do much anyway. So at the end of it, fuck it, it's going to happen. But I'm feeling better now, which is good. I've cleared my head. I'm walking around, doing pretty much doing stuff around the house at this point. I might go for a walk. I did go for a walk a few days ago. Last week it would have been, just to get myself out of the house, so clear my head a bit, which is good. I'm thinking of doing a letterbox drop at some point during the week. I think that will definitely be a plan. Drop some business cards in some of the letterboxes locally, my street and stuff, and why the hell not? Might as well do it. In between that, what am I doing? What else am I doing? I'm just trying to find myself, I guess. I don't know, it's been a long week. Well, not a long week. It's been not a long week. It's been a couple of days now, and when the cold weather comes in, and I first start to get the cold weather, I feel joint pains, everything else. Parts of my body act up. I get hay fever. This is the thing. I get hay fever. It goes from hay fever to joint pains to other things that happen with my body. My body just plays up. And it's a change of season thing. It always happens to me. It takes me a little while to get back into the swing of things, and it takes me a little while to get my body back into the line of where I was. So sometimes it can leave me a bit disorientated with what I want to do, or it can leave me a little defocused, I guess, too. So at this point, it's sort of refocusing myself on what I want to do. As I said, because now I know all my stuff's working, which all my equipment is working now to its expected parameters, and I'm quite happy with that, to be honest. I am a bit of a person who, if something doesn't necessarily work the way I expect it to, it does put a bit of a damper on how I feel about all the enthusiasm that I put towards it. I'd rather have the equipment working. I'd rather have everything you know, doing exactly what it's supposed to do than it not. To be honest, it pisses me off. I don't make a fuss about it all the time, but to be honest, I could if I really, truly wanted to. I'm picky. I admit that. Maybe, you know, it's partly to do with my OCD. Maybe it's partly to do with my Asperger's. It's partly to do with that, you know. I mean, at the end of it, it's partly to do with some of my psychological conditions too. My depression, you know, my schizophrenia too can sometimes lead to stressful levels, and sometimes when something doesn't go exactly the way I expect it to, it sort of puts a damper on how I feel, and it does make me feel depressed, to be honest. Maybe that's, as I said, a psychological trigger thing for me. So I've got to work. That's something I've got to work on anyway. In between that, I mean, I don't know. I'm trying to keep myself as busy as possible. At the same time, I want to be able to work on different projects that I feel like working on. I know that I've got that spare board now, which is great. That means if I do want to build myself another 6-core or something of that nature, it'd be an AMD build, I can if I choose to, which is great. That's a spectacular thing on Scoot. I can muck around and put a processor in it and everything else, and away we go. You know, the only thing I don't have, I mean, as I said, I chucked the rest of that other RAM out, which didn't seem to be functioning correctly. I'm not majorly worried about that RAM anyway. At this point, if I do get some RAM for this other build, I'll probably end up buying some RAM or something of that nature. Most likely it will be, I don't know, I'm liking Kingston HyperX so far. It seems pretty good so far in the sense of memory. I've got it in my computer and it seems to be pretty steady in most cases. So at this point I'm thinking, why not? Looks interesting, so, you know, could be cool. I'll probably get some Kingston HyperX Fury RAM again, which, as I said, I had a Corsair originally, and as I said, there was a lot of Corsair. I don't know, it struck me as issues with Corsair and other stuff. I mean, at the end of it, there was problems with that RAM. I know there is. That's the reason I replaced it, because I couldn't get it to profile up right on my motherboard. There was other random things, random blue screens, which were pointing to memory, which said system memory management. So to me, that's pointing directly to the memory being an issue as well. So that's the reason I thought, fuck it, I'm just going to scrap it, get rid of the RAM, and fuck it, I'm just going to start over. So I did start over with some new RAM. I got myself a nice 32GB kit, all working, all functioning. RAM looks good too, by the way. It's blue color. Motherboard I have, which is a Gigabyte motherboard, which is a nice motherboard, by the way. It's a Gigabyte G1 gaming motherboard, fantastic motherboard, no blue screens. I have one little blue screen, but I think that was related to virtual memory settings that I had in my system. That's what it was pretty much related to, honestly. And I think that's the reason I was having the issues I was having. Well, sorry, that's the reason I had that one blue screen. And I haven't had the blue screen since. So, yeah, thumbs up. Good all, it's going well. Now, as I said, random blue screens and other stuff. I mean, I think that last blue screen that I had was not actually related to my RAM or anything of that nature. It wasn't related to my motherboard or my RAM. It was related to my video card, which my video cards could be getting. I mean, they are getting on in age, but I mean, at the same time, I think it was just related to drivers, because NVIDIA have had a couple of issues with their drivers being dodgy on and off, as we all know, you know, in the coming months, especially when it comes to the fact that I'm running SLI, people. So this is the other reason. But I think it was. I think the error I ended up getting was actually related to IRQ. Sorry, it was not IRQ. It was related to my virtual memory setting not being set to automatic or set to the actual system recommendations. Now, I did that because I was having some problems with lag and I couldn't work out why. So I got rid of the lag and everything else, and you know, that's all pretty much where it should be. Now, interesting part about that is that, as I said, after I uninstalled and put ESET back onto my system, everything's, you know, hunky-dory, which is great, of course. That's fantastic. I'm not going to argue with that. But I didn't research into Zone Alarm because I didn't think there was any problems. As far as I know, most of the people and most of the places, I mean, I hadn't gone completely into it, but most of the places I came across had a pretty positive experience with it. But the weird part is on my dad's computer, my laptop, and the workbench computer, Zone Alarm's fine. It works great. Now, as I said, I don't know what it's. It must be the specific combination of programs I use on my computer, in combination with my hardware combined, that it just does not like Zone Alarm. It does not like the way the Zone Alarm sort of does things. You know what I mean? So I'm assuming that it's something to do with my individual configuration and my individual software preferences, of course. And I think it's all pretty much down to that. Now, as I said, the other issues that I have, I know they were pretty related to my motherboard and my RAM. Because, as I said, I was having those issues trying to clock that RAM up to the right speed. And, yeah, there was issues there. I could tell that straight off the bat. Any other issues, really? Aside from that, I haven't really... There's no massive issues at this point. No, everything seems to be functioning with normal parameters. My RAM is working. My power supply is working very nicely. I've still got my other power supply. Now, I've still got my old power supply, and I put it in the workbench computer because I thought it would be just the best option to keep it there, just in case. Because I didn't chuck it, just in case. As I said, I may not necessarily have needed to replace my power supply, but I did anyway. So, you know, I mean, that's just because of the fact that I was going through so many different diagnostic things to figure out exactly what the hell was going on with it. Some people made it, like, I looked at some of the suggestions online and some of the actual stuff symptoms that are related to power supply issues. Those issues, or those symptoms, came up as being the issues I was having, which was mainly blue screens. Now, as I said, that's firstly when I thought, oh, that's my power supply, so I replaced the power supply, that's fine. The power supply didn't cost me a massive amount of money, it was like $140 or something. It wasn't a massive, you know, I didn't spend a massive amount on it. It was a reconditioned power supply, but I mean, I didn't spend a massive amount on it. So I'm not too miffed that I got it, you know, it didn't bother me. But yeah, it would have been nice if I'd known it was the motherboard first up, and maybe I could have put a bit more extra into things. But at the end of it, I was happy with the way I went about it. I sort of worked out that there was at least two things, which was the motherboard and the motherboard and my RAM, which seemed to be two things that were malfunctioning. Now, the other side of it too is, I initially thought it was a power supply just because of the way, the different symptoms, and these are the thing, or this is the thing that I researched online. So I researched the different symptoms of power supply issues, and power supply issues and these symptoms are very similar to each other in some ways, the way that it acts. Now, mind you, I haven't changed back to the old power supply in my current rig since I put the new motherboard in. So, interesting that. I mean, I don't know if I were to change back to the old power supply, would it have the same blue screen issues? I don't know, but I don't think so, because I honestly think it was the motherboard that was having all the issues. Because as soon as I changed the motherboard out, everything just got very, much better anyway, in general. So, I mean, at the end of it, I'm going to say that the motherboard and the RAM were a lot to do with the issues that I was having. Now, at the other side of it too, it's very hard to it's hard to diagnose my computer because there's a lot of stuff in it. Now, the problem is, I had to go through weeks and weeks of diagnostics. I'm sitting there thinking, oh, fuck, it's this, it's that. And then, at the end of it, I finally get it stable and working the way I want it, which is now, obviously. But I had to go through a few different parts and a few different changes before I actually got everything working again. The other side of it too is, as I said, I replaced my board, which is fantastic. The Sabertooth board that I had in there, I got that replaced on warranty, which, as I said, from what I could tell, it was throwing up random errors and doing random stuff. Now, they obviously did their own tests as well, and they found out that there was some issues there. with the board. So yeah. At the end of it, they sent me a replacement. It was a reconditioned replacement, but it's still a replacement regardless. What else? So at this point in time, pretty happy with where I stand with most things. Everything's functioning to the way I want it to function. I've got the replacement board on in front of me, or I'm sitting on the bench outside. Also, I've got a replacement memory card coming in the mail. I don't know when that's going to arrive. Next week, week after. Who knows? We'll see. We'll see when it arrives. I haven't had anybody come up to me and sort of. Well, I haven't had any deliveries lately. Last time I checked last time I checked the what do you call it? The letterbox outside. There was only a couple of letters there. But, you know, who was it? Yeah, there's only a couple of letters from a phone company and stuff like that. But that's about it. As I said, the thing that I've worked out myself is that I went through the proper procedures. I tested everything as much as I could, especially for the fact that I do have a lot in my computer. You've got to consider that factor. It was hard to pinpoint, I think, mainly because if it's a motherboard issue and it's an intermittent motherboard, because it was intermittent. Sometimes it would happen. Sometimes the blue screens would happen. Sometimes they wouldn't. Now the problem with that is that I couldn't tell off the bat what was causing the blue screen issue initially, because I'm thinking, oh, is it my memory? Is this, that? And as I said, it might have been a combination of the motherboard and the memory combined. So that's sort of where things got hairy, because if they're both playing up, yeah, it's hard. It's going to be hard to diagnose both at the same time. Sort of be able to diagnose both at the same time. As I said, my rig is fairly substantial. It's a very, very powerful rig. It's powerful, but it's also got a lot in it in the first place. So there's a lot more to diagnose. I need to take into account every hard drive that's in there, every CD-ROM. Every piece of hardware in the sense of video cards. There's 2 video cards in there, right? And there's a lot of hardware in there. And the thing about having a lot of hardware in your computer is to tell which item is sometimes it can be extremely hard, especially if the item is intermittently failing. Like failing sometimes and other times not. Depending on the situation, of course. As I said, it depends on the circumstance, but that's what I'm seeing, or those are the symptoms I was seeing. And all of a sudden, bang, it's fine. As I said, I've got it all fixed up now and everything's working, which is great. I've got everything where I want it. The thing I might consider towards the future is, because I've got 2 770s, I may consider replacement cards at some point. Most likely the 1070s or 970s, depending on the price, and if I can get them for a good price. Or if I can get them for a good bargain price, in the sense, budget sort of restrictions sort of thing. I was considering AMD cards, but I don't know. NVIDIA drivers are getting better. They're getting better. They seem to be stabilising a little more, and they seem to be a little better than they used to be. I was having some initial problems. As I said, a lot of those blue screen problems, yes, I think they were related to my motherboard, but I also think some of them were sort of related to the video card. But I think it's that motherboard and that motherboard and those video card combination, maybe. So, because the weird part is, on this current board that I've got, I haven't had any blue screens except for one. Only one. This is only one that seemed to be, and I'm not sure, I would have to check actually back in the memory dump logs, if it actually said that it was anything related to the video card itself. But the weird part is, I can play games, I can play games, I can play what's the name of it? Alan Wake and a bunch of other games. I can play a shitload of games on there, and I don't have a problem. So, at the end of it, I think it also could have been a little bit combined Windows 10 programming stuff, in the sense of Windows 10 itself, just shit that shouldn't be changed or should work in a particular way. There's a little thing that I've actually come to, there's a little tool that I've come to learn, which is it's Spybot, Search and Destroy tool, which is designed to disable all the spyware stuff that's in Windows 10. which is a great little tool to be honest, because I've disabled all that stuff and now it's a lot. It seems to be running a bit smoother. It seems to be running a bit better. So I would definitely recommend that for anybody who wants to disable a lot of the sort of advertising stuff, spyware type stuff in. Well, it's not spyware. Well, yeah, it is spyware. A lot of the sort of ad revenue collecting stuff that they basically any of the ad revenue collecting stuff that they have in Windows 10. So my recommendation would be to use this tool and definitely use it to disable a lot of that stuff and turn a lot of those things off that you don't essentially need. A lot of it is not essential. Some of it may say it is, but it's not necessarily. Now, at the end of it, I'm finding most things are pretty stable at this point. I've fixed everything else up that I need to fix up. Windows 10 is not a bad OS overall, but I'm wary of the fact of spy, like not the spyware, but the advertising stuff that they got built into it, which is kind of a bit dodgy, I admit. But I guess at the end of it, they're trying to make money. They want to make money on, selling people products, which is logical. I understand that. But if you're an enthusiast like myself and a computer technician, that's some of the stuff you don't really need. I can understand it for sort of maybe the certain consumer levels, but especially if it's somebody like me, I don't necessarily need that stuff in the computer. It's not important. But at the same time, you get people on the other side of it too, who are sort of arguing privacy rights and everything else. I mean, as I said, some people are saying, the data they collect is pretty substantial. I mean, in some ways, I guess it's sort of a catch-22 thing. I mean, at the end of it, so far I'm finding Windows 10 is not too bad now that I've disabled some of that stuff that we were talking about, and I've pretty much disabled everything that I need to disable. There might be a couple of things there might actually be some things you can go into the registry and physically hack and disable, but I didn't go that far. I went as far to use the program. It was like an automated sort of program that does all that stuff. But I would recommend only using the Spyboot and Destroy one, which was recommended by, I believe, Barnacles. He pointed out that a lot of the other ones, which seem to be ones that are actually bundled with spyware themselves, they disable the stuff in Windows, but they also put their own spyware there in there as well. So yes, the Spybot one that he pointed out is quite fantastic. I was quite happy with it. I went through the list of things that I had and just went, okay, cool, that's cool. So it covered everything that I needed to cover. So at the end of it, I'm sitting there thinking, oh, nice, that's cool, no problem. So I went through that, and at the end of it, kind of the conclusion, there's nothing wrong with disabling that stuff. It's sometimes, as I said, not a whole lot of it is really essential. It's just stuff that they sort of collect revenue from, well, not revenue, but they collect information so they can sell you products, basically. Other side of it too, as I said, I don't mind Windows 10 as an OS so far. I've had little hiccups here and there, as I said. It was mostly related to my antivirus and things of that nature. So that's bound to happen with any new OS. We'll see how it goes, and we'll see if I come up against anything in the next few months. But so far, I'm pretty happy. Only thing I've had issues with, and so far these are the things I've had issues with. NVIDIA drivers originally, I had some issues. I had some real bad issues, actually some pretty nasty ones. SLI issues. Now I don't see, this is the thing, these SLI issues that I came up against, I don't know whether it was related directly to my motherboard, and maybe my RAM in combination, that was causing some of the blue screens to ultimately kick in my video cards and sort of kick in a lot of other hardware in my system. That's, as I said, that's because I've been dealing with these things for months, but I didn't want to admit. I didn't want to feel that there was a hardware problem, because I mean my hardware was pretty strong. I had a nice, it was a good board. I thought it was a good board, good RAM and everything else, and all this other stuff. And I'm like, no, there's nothing wrong. And I kept on plums. I was a bit stubborn about it. I kept on plumb admitting that there wasn't hardware issues, and at the end of it, after changing out my board and changing out my RAM, I've come to the conclusion there was hardware issues. There was more hardware issues than I thought. As I said, I did run some general tests and stuff, but those general tests did not show anything immediately. And the weird part is I could go like a few, maybe 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 weeks without a problem, sometimes longer. and I wouldn't have a problem with the hardware. Nothing would keel over and die, or fucking blue screen or whatever. And I'm thinking, what the fuck is going to... Because it was intermittently happening. Sometimes it would happen frequently, sometimes it would happen not at all. Then other times it would just not... It would stop happening. And at the end of it, as I said, it could have been a combination of that, all that stuff combined. And then, of course, yes, it is true, and this is according to some people, even on the forums on NVIDIA themselves, NVIDIA have released some dodgy drivers as well. They have released drivers that are not up to the task of actually working with the video cards in question. Yeah, the other thing is too, my video cards are currently 770s, so they're like in 2 generations. Well, no. Well, now they're 2 generations behind. Or they're like a generation behind the current ones, which is the 900 series. But of course, then you've got the higher series, which is the new sort of the 10,000 series. Well, you know, yeah. At this point, anyway, from now I'm pretty much going to be 2 generations behind, or a generation behind, or something like that. Yeah, something to that effect. Anyway, my point is, it's going to be behind anyway. But there's rumours that you hear, and I mean, I'm not saying it's the case that NVIDIA is doing it, because maybe it's a possibility they could be doing it too. That they could be giving the Kefler, the original Kefler 770s and 780s and GPUs and everything else, and so they're capping them, which is a possibility. That's a distinct possibility. But at the other side of it too, I think it depends also vastly on the computer as well that you're using it with in certain situations. Different configurations, different ways of using things. On top of that, it also probably depends on the RAM, the different configurations, hard drive config, things like that. It all comes down to how it's being used. It also comes down to how it's being utilized. And the truth of the situation is that I think, yes, it's quite possible that, and I'm pretty damn sure that there's been plenty of few dodgy drivers with NVIDIA lately. I'm pretty damn sure that a lot of their stuff has been related to that. And maybe it was a specific thing with the compatibility of my last board, which was a Sabertooth for AMD, FX 9590. Maybe it was that board that had specific compatibility issues with that particular card, or it had specific compatibility issues relating to NVIDIA drivers. So it could have been a very specific thing. I don't know. I didn't look up specific. Well, I did. I mean, I researched a little bit, but I mean, I could have gone for a dozen different things, you know, to say, oh, is this compatible with that? I mean, at the end of it, I went through most of the components of my computer, and as I said, you would think, my board being fairly decent, it's an ASUS motherboard, you would think my motherboard would be completely compatible with most things and wouldn't have any issues. You would think. But, yeah, that's sort of a catch-22 thing. So, when you do build some things, and when you build computers, sometimes you come up against those little compatibility issues, whether it's certain compatibilities with certain RAM modules, certain video cards, certain configs with hard drives, whether it's RAID, or whatever you really want to do. My point is, there's sometimes there's just that little niche that you get caught on, which ultimately screws the whole thing up, or causes it to come to a grinding halt, pretty much. So I mean, that's a lesson learned when it comes to building your own computer. There's nothing wrong with picking parts, and most of the time you find, I mean, as long as you pick parts that are in the same category with each other, most of the time you find things work pretty well. But I've had weird things happen, I mean, on different computers, like my dad's got a cheaper motherboard than mine. And his computer... his computer works. But I've had a couple of random blue screens for no particular reason. Just out of the blue. All of a sudden, bang, there they are, those random, 1 or 2 random blue screens. Now, he's not running the same processor as I am. He's running a older series. He's running the Phenom 2s, or a Phenom 2, which, as I said, Phenom 2 is a relatively old processor. Well, it's it's pretty damn old processor these days. But I mean, it still runs pretty well, considering it's a quad core Runs pretty nicely. Still not a bad processor by any means. But I've had a couple of random blue screens just pop up from time to time when I've been doing things. That's originally when I first put his together. And then the blue screens are sort of over time, they updated the BIOS and they got done a couple of other bits and pieces and drivers and stuff, and those blue screens have just vanished like that. The other side of it too is I've had, I've never had, with my laptop, which is an Intel, I've had a couple of weird problems installing NVIDIA drivers. Yes, NVIDIA drivers have been a pain in my ass. Mainly NVIDIA drivers have mainly been a pain in my ass because I've had problems trying to reinstall them or uninstall them or clean install them. I had issues where I've had to completely do a clean install using display driver on installer, and that's the only way I've been able to clear the system out completely. It's been rather frustrating because of the amount of time that I've had to spend on just trying to get rid of a driver or clean up a driver and reinstall it. As I said, I've never I don't think I've had AMD or not. I don't think I've had any recent AMD graphics cards offhand, but I sort of know, like, I know from some people they've had bad past experience with AMD drivers, but as I said, I don't know what it is about some standalone graphics in question. Sometimes they can be a real pain in the ass in the sense of what they do and how they react. It's not all of them, it's only some of them, but I've had situations in the past where I've tried to install something, and as I said, when it comes to NVIDIA drivers, there's also a funny one I had as well, which was, this was a long time ago. I think it was the free version of ZoneAlarm I had on my computer. It detected, yeah, I've actually got a video on my channel of it, which is, it actually detected, my NVIDIA drivers as a virus. It said disinfect the computer now, and it basically rebooted and got me to disinfect the computer. And I'm sitting there and I'm thinking, okay, that's freaking weird. And that's when I was on the free version. Mind you, I've got the extreme version now, but it's just like I'm sitting there and thinking, what the fuck? How exactly is this a virus? But I have had some weird stuff with NVIDIA drivers. And I have had moments where literally I'm pulling my hair out with NVIDIA drivers. And this is not just on my own computer, but on my laptop and on my nephew's computer, because he's got an NVIDIA 670, my old 670, and I've had some situations where I've just gone, holy fuck, how can you stuff drivers this bad? Basically, as I said, they stuffed them so much that, like, just trying to do anything is virtually impossible, or just trying to update things is like, what the fuck? So yeah, as I said, it's not always the case, and as I said, not too bad. I think recent drivers for me, they're working pretty well so far. I haven't had any major hiccups, so we'll cross our fingers and just see how we go for the moment. But the conclusion that I've come to with that is that it's sort of luck of the draw too. In my mind, I think in the long run, driver issues are going to crop up, especially with Windows 10, because, as I said, I'm hearing from a lot of people, as I said, that a lot of the stuff was, like, not beta tested, but a lot of the stuff that came out when it was initially released was not ready for a particular situation that was ready for. The other thing too is that it is actually, some people are saying this also, they're pointing out this argument as well, that honestly and truthfully, Windows 10 is not really optimized for SLI. It should have some type of physical Windows update to sort of address that issue, as because it's not really optimized well for SLI, basically. So at this point, I'm going to leave it anyway. Thank you very much, YouTube. Hope you enjoy my videos. Thumbs up if you like them. Thumbs down if you don't. Like, favorite, and subscribe, of course. And if you'd like to make a contribution to my PayPal or my PayPal donations link, or my what's the other one? Patreon campaign, please feel free. As I said, I'm always interested in new projects, and I'm always interested in building new stuff, and it always puts a smile on my face, and also keeps me inside my passion as well, and keeps me busy. Keeps my mind focused too. Sometimes it keeps my mind off the fact that I do have conditions. I do have a bit of depression. Well, I have depression. I have my schizophrenia as well. As I said, these things are relatively mild, but I do take medication for them, so that does affect how I feel sometimes, and it does affect. It affects a lot of things in my life, and I think it also it affects my body weight in some cases, just because of the medication I take, and I'm pretty damn sure that it's related to that picture. To be honest, I do try to keep myself as healthy as I possibly can, but it's not easy when this particular medications I take do give you certain cravings and things like that and stuff like that. But my point is anyway, or the point that I'm trying to make is that this stuff, it makes me happy. I enjoy it. It's a passion. It's also a career path for me, and as I said, it keeps me going. So anyway, thank you very much. Stay tuned. To all my subscribers, thank you for being my subscribers, which I have 119 at the moment, that's fantastic. I'd love to get more, to be honest. That'd be great. I'd love to get a shitload more. I'm always open to new subscribers. I'm always open to new suggestions. If you want to make a suggestion for my channel or any ideas that you think that might work in most cases, I'm always open to that stuff anyway. So all good. Anyway, thank you very much, and as per usual, catch you next time. Catch you next time, YouTube. So please, do stay tuned. All right.